and thank you for downloading the Witness History podcast from the BBC World Service with me, Rachel Naylor. Today I'm taking you back more than 50 years to when one of the most well-known logos in the world was created. I've been speaking to the man who designed the recycling symbol. It's 1970 and we're in LA. 23-year-old Gary Anderson is studying architecture at the University of Southern California. One day he spots a poster on campus. It's a competition to mark the first Earth Day on the 22nd of April to design a logo for recycled paper products.
It was my last year in school. I didn't really know what I was going to be doing next for sure. And when I read the rules for the competition, it seemed like it was something that I could do without too much difficulty. I didn't need a lot of special resources. I didn't need any help. I could do it all by myself. I didn't need a team. So it just seemed like it was quite doable.
So doable, in fact, that Gary submitted 3 entries, which were variations on the same theme.
This was before computers, so I did it all by hand with conventional drafting instruments, compasses, triangles, a T-square.
How long did you spend on the winning design?
Actually, not that long. I'd say it was probably the main work was less than a day, and probably, as I was mulling it over and making tweaks, less than a week.
His main inspiration was a mathematical concept called the Mobius strip, which is a surface that can be formed by attaching the ends of a strip of paper together with a half twist.
I had read a little poem when I was in elementary school. Hickory dickory dick, the mouse on the Mobius strip. The strip revolved, the mouse dissolved in a chronodimensional skip. Well, I was really too young to understand much of that at all, but I looked into what that all meant, and I was just fascinated with that whole concept ever since, even now. And so I took that idea, which is one end of a strip is flipped over and attached to the other end of a strip. There's really only one surface. In my mind, that kind of related to recycling, because if everything is recycled, it just seems like we're reusing the same material over and over again. And since this symbol was supposed to have to do with recycled paper, I remembered also a school trip that we took to visit a newspaper. And I was intrigued with these huge rolls of newsprint that were going over rollers as they were being fed into the print machine. And just that process, the movement and the kind of sweeping swirls of paper and the straight parts in between the rollers, that gave me also part of the idea for the symbol.
In case you can't picture it, Gary's symbol is 3 arrows in the shape of a triangle.
I submitted it kind of on a lark, but I felt that it was a good symbol. I met all the requirements, and I was satisfied with the symbol myself. I thought it did what it was supposed to do.
And Gary was right to be. A few weeks later, he received a letter telling him he'd won.
Maybe just because of the arrogance of youth, it almost seemed like, well, yes, of course, I won. So, of course, I felt that it was a good symbol when I submitted it. And, of course, I was happy, but it just kind of seemed like it was the right thing.
Gary won $2,000, but it had to be used to further his education. He chose to spend it on going to study at the University of Stockholm in Sweden.
The reason I chose that was because that's part of my heritage, and also because the program I found was offered in English. So it all just seemed to come together, and I was able to study not more graphics, not more architecture, but social sciences.
After his year abroad, Gary returned to the US and got a job as an architect. He didn't think much about winning the competition after that. He didn't even put it on his CV.
I was afraid that the prospective employer would misunderstand what my strengths were and would choose somebody who clearly had a strong focus in architecture and didn't have anything that would distract from that.
As part of the rules of the competition, the symbol was not trademarked and remains in the public domain. This, coupled with the simplicity of Gary's design, meant that the symbol soon became used worldwide to mean recycling. But it wasn't until several years later that Gary spotted it in use, while on holiday in Amsterdam.
I was just walking around enjoying the scenery, and I turned a corner and there were 3 huge igloo-shaped recycling bins, blue, yellow, and red. And there on each one of them was the recycling symbol enlarged to the size of a beach ball. That was really kind of astounding to be presented at really pretty close range at such a large scale and in a foreign country. So that was the first time that I really began to think that people might be taking it seriously and that it might really be more than just something that this company was using for promotional purposes.
Now, of course, more than 50 years later, the universal recycling symbol is so ubiquitous, Gary even gets fan mail.
Usually they're from kids. I don't know how they get my address. I don't really mind. In fact, I'm happy to get the mail. They usually say how impressed they are, and they're always very flattering about the fact that, one individual designed this symbol, and they very often also send along a little copy of the symbol, and they ask that I sign it and return it, which I'm always happy to do.
Gary's design is now one of the most recognizable symbols in the world.
I think just like everybody else, I kind of take it for granted because it is on so many things. I like to say it's on a lot of trash. But on the other hand, I'm very happy about it. I'm actually proud, that something that I created is used so extensively. What I'm really proudest about is that I think it really has made a change in raising people's awareness of the fact that things can be recycled or that things have been recycled, and even what recycling is. When the competition was run, I think a lot of people just didn't even know what recycling was. In fact, I'm almost positive of it. Now, just about everybody, I think, knows what recycling is. So if only for that, that makes me feel like I really accomplished something. Of course, back then, I never dreamed that it would be as important as it has been. So, and maybe that's another reason that I didn't get that excited about it. I thought, okay, I've won this competition. But I didn't really expect that much would happen with it after the company used it a little bit on their packaging. And then, it would just kind of fade into obscurity, is really what I imagined would happen.
Do you ever feel shortchanged that you only got $2,000?
No, I never really have. Those were the rules. And, I understood that I wouldn't be compensated other than the prize money. So, no. And the other thing is, you can't really say that it generates any income. And if it did, if people had to pay to use it in order to pay me some royalties, nobody would use it.
Gary Anderson was speaking to me, Rachel Naylor, for that episode of the Witness History podcast from the BBC World Service. If you enjoy our podcast, why not leave us a review?